How was your night? I didn't have much of a night. I bet a lot of you were watching the election results coming in as well. It is 2000 all over again, except instead of just one state, there are a lot of states with drama going on as the nation is waking up on the morning after Election Day. Let me go ahead and give you the latest. There's no sports last night, by the way, and I figure you guys probably want to hear us break down and talk about everything going on in the world, literally as we speak right now. The president of the United States potentially being decided. A couple different things. While many of you were sleeping last night, Joe Biden took the lead in Wisconsin by about 8,000 votes. It was a huge swing. The Trump had been up by over 100,000 votes. I laid down for an hour. I picked up my phone, and I had to blink twice. I was like, oh, wow, that's a big move in Wisconsin. If Trump ends up losing Wisconsin, that is, Joe Biden wins it, then this would mean that Trump needs to win the other four states where he has leads right now: Pennsylvania, Michigan, North Carolina, and Georgia, all of those leads of varying degrees as the different votes come in. Now, one of the big challenges that has been a major issue all throughout last night and all into this morning as well is twofold. Where are the votes? And also, on top of that, are they absentee votes? Are they mail votes? Are they in-person votes? Because that can swing things in a big way. Republicans tended to go out and vote in person today, and so the in-person vote totals have favored Republicans by a massive degree. Democrats, as a general rule, were doing absentee ballots mail-in more substantially. And so what is going to end up happening? We have seen absolutely gyroscopic-like wild moves in the betting markets in Europe. Last night, about 9:15 Eastern, Trump became a big favorite to win the election. And then as the night progressed, the line continued to bounce around a little bit. Now, prior to 9:15 Eastern last night, Joe Biden had been a big favorite coming into Election Day. Now, Biden has become a small favorite to win the election if you look at the betting markets. Now, to be fair, the betting markets don't seem to have any idea what's going on any better than your average person out there does, to be frank. And they're all relying on what the vote totals are going to tell us as well. Several different big takeaways. One, the polls were mostly worthless. All these different polls that people talked about obsessively, many of them were not even remotely close to what we saw on the ground. Some were off by nearly double digits, which frankly defeats the entire purpose of a poll at all. And that goes in both directions, right? Because if you rely on them at all, then you are using a broken calculator effectively. It's unclear. Some of you out there are going to be like, okay, when is a decision going to be official? It's unclear when that might be because there are so many mail-in ballots that still have to be counted, so many votes overall that still have to be counted. In Atlanta, in North Carolina, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Arizona, in Nevada, in Pennsylvania, a lot of different states still unclear exactly who is going to win, even though some of those states have been called or look to be trending in one direction or another. Again, I would say that this reminds me a lot of 2000 for those of you who are too young to remember. In 2000, it came down to one state, Florida, and we had a 37-day uncertainty after the 2000 election until George W. Bush ended up winning the state of Florida by a small margin. And so that could be the case here. I don't know for sure. Again, no one really does. So be wary or leery of anybody out there who is telling you that they feel like they understand exactly what is going to happen in these races. Also, the courts might get involved before all is said or done because there could be a dispute about whether or not votes are being tallied correctly. It wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, I would expect it if lawsuits are going to be filed. The other thing I would add here is that the Senate looks at least right now like it may stay in the Republican Party. If you are someone out there who's like, just tell me, like, Clay, I don't care at all. I don't care who wins. I just don't want somebody to bother me. Divided government is typically government that doesn't do that much one way or another. So if you're just out there right now and you're like, I'm so sick of this election, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, my hope is that that nothing crazy happens. Well, then it looks like there may be a divided government. And if there's not a divided government, we may be in a 50-50 Senate situation where the vice president would cast tie-breaking votes, but it basically makes it really hard to get anything that aggressive done when you're in effectively an even Senate. But there are still several undecided Senate races out there, and given how wild the outcomes have been already, I'm not sure even how to analyze it. Now, in terms of my universe, Jason Whitlock came out last night and stayed until about 1 a.m. at the house. He thought that there was going to be some sort of resolution or conclusion last night. That was his prediction on Outkick yesterday. And so he eventually just threw up his hands and said, I'm going back to my place to spend the night. So he walked back out, took his toothbrush and his underwear, and rolled back to his place in Nashville. But we spent the night sitting in my front room watching the election results come in, like a lot of you, with certainly my oldest son, he's 12. He was kind of fascinated by the Electoral College and the way everything was breaking. And he was enjoying looking at the map and everything else associated with that. I went and voted in person yesterday, and it never ceases to amaze me how incredible it is to be able to be a part of electing our leaders, whether it's the person you voted for or not. I'm 41. I have voted about half the time for the winner. I have voted about half the time for the loser. So I am used to having both perspectives covered. For a while last night, it seemed like it was going to be deja vu all over again, that 2020 was going to be a replica of exactly what happened in 2016. But then when Arizona went for Joe Biden, suddenly things started to go a little bit haywire. And now, again, if you're just waking up, and one of you guys can let me know, I don't have the constantly tabulated election results in front of me at this exact moment, but Wisconsin has taken, that Joe Biden has taken a small lead in the state of Wisconsin. From a sports perspective, there is a sports connection to last night's election. Former Auburn football coach, as well as former Ole Miss football coach, Tommy Tuberville, is now a United States Senator from Alabama. He won his election comfortably, and he may end up being the only pickup in the Senate for Republicans. We'll have to wait and see. But if you are a college football fan, you have probably watched Tommy Tuberville's teams play over the years. That was a pickup of a seat in the state of Alabama. And that might be the only Senate seat that the Republicans pick up. I'm not sure, but that is a direct connection to the world of sports. Now, some of you may say, oh, why aren't you talking about, like, there are lots of days to talk about sports, to be frank. There literally was no sports last night because everything was shut down for the election. Tomorrow, I promise you, on Thursday, I got to sit here and think for a minute about exactly what day it is. I imagine that we will be turning our attention on this program back to week 9 of the NFL, to the upcoming weekend of college football. But this is an unprecedented story taking place while we are live on the air. And I think it would be super weird if suddenly I was talking about what the Cowboys should do at quarterback, while everybody else out there is trying to figure out who the next president of the United States is going to be. So that's my call. That's my decision. If you're upset with it, I understand. I understand you might be like, I want an escape from the real world. I wanted to listen to you, Clay, and I didn't want to hear a single thing about the election. I apologize. This is not going to be your show. But I think most people probably would like to have a conversation about the election. And by the way, we did that in 2016 when Trump won a surprising election victory. I hadn't even been on the air very long at Fox Sports Radio, and the next morning, that's all anybody was talking about. So I watched Trump speak last night. I watched Biden speak last night. There are a lot of moving parts here. Let me bring in the crew. I'm assuming you guys stayed up and watched the elections as well, Danny G. Is there anything that jumped out to you in particular?
Yeah, just a lot of us are going to be blurry-eyed this morning drinking coffee.
There's no doubt. I'm thinking about just going back to bed when I finish the
Serious.
show this morning because I barely slept last night. I know the election tally is going to continue throughout the day and everything else, but what can I do about it? At this point, I enjoyed watching it last night on television, but I really don't want to be plugged into my phone for the next several days trying to figure out who's going to win, although maybe that's going to be necessary. I was hoping we would get a resolution last night, as I would imagine almost everybody listening to us was right now as well, just because this 2020 year in general has been so intensely and insanely political.
Yeah, and one thing that stood out to me, just because it's, part of what we do for a living, watching the coverage and flipping around to the different channels.
Yeah.
How about the guys who stand in front of the digital maps and they're able to break down all the different counties?
I love that. I think if I'm not mistaken, it's John King primarily who does that on CNN, and it is Bill Hemmer. Bill Hemmer who does it on Fox News, and I think MSNBC also has a guy who does it as well.
He's got a paper in his hand, like a play sheet.
Yeah, I mean, I just love that stuff. I mean, I love the way they can zoom around on the board and pull up counties and give us. I love watching the tallies of the votes coming in. I really think election night is super cool. In fact, I will say that I thought the most wild thing about election night was the election odds, which were just moving around insanely all throughout the night. And for a while, it looked like Biden was going to win, and that he had been a major favorite for a long time. And then suddenly Trump became a big favorite. And then the money started coming back in on Biden, and then Trump started to pull away. And now this morning, it's now looking like Biden is the favorite, but he's not as big of a favorite as he was before the election even started. So this has ended up much closer than I think the consensus opinion was. And I'm actually curious, what's the stock market going to do? Like, how is everything going to move as we, start to get maybe some more certainty as to what is likely to be the outcome. So anyway, this is going to be wild. Anything else that stood out to you, Danny G?
No, just I think a lot of people's routines are going to be a little bit different this morning. Normally I listen to the Ben Maller show on my drive in for our show. Yeah. And today, for the first time, I was switching between Maller and KFI. And I never
news in LA. Yeah.
I never have news talk radio on.
Yeah.
So, and last night when I ran out to get dinner, I also had news talk radio on. So, it's just an interesting time in our country and a real nail biter. And who would have thought it could come down to Pennsylvania?
I mean, I think most people thought it might come down to Pennsylvania, but I think there was hope in the Biden camp that they were going to win Florida, that they were going to, contend in more southern states and win them, and that it wasn't going to end up being anywhere near as close as it has been. And I think there was hope in the Trump campaign that they were going to be able to hang on to Arizona, and that would have given them a little bit more leeway in the Midwest states, the Big Ten states, so to speak, the Michigan, the Wisconsin, and the Pennsylvanias, than it appears that they're maybe going to have. But, again, we still got a lot to figure out here before all is said and done. Dub, did you watch the election results come in?
I did, and it was a fascinating night, and I was like you. I was watching the betting market as well.
Yes.
And that was like watching like a crazy Atlanta Falcons or a crazy Pac-12 game or something like that, because
there was so much movement.
Starting the night, Joe Biden was a pretty substantial favorite, and then it kind of started trending like last election did. And Donald Trump at one point got to like minus 700, which is
a monster
like
favorite.
85% implied odds of winning the election. And as we stand currently right now this morning, Joe Biden, a slight favorite, around minus 150. So just watching that dynamic of everything was absolutely fascinating. And I'm curious, these betting markets are pretty much controlled by the bettors. So in my opinion, seeing how this is kind of come out to be, to me, it seems like a lot of bettors thought, oh, Trump's got the lead. He's gonna steamroll just like last time, and that's why we saw the markets in the betting world go all the way up to minus 700 at one point late last night.
Yeah, and again, I mean, for people out there who don't really follow gambling and don't really understand minus 700, like you said, that would be 85% chance basically that Trump was going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we stand right now, minus 150 around there, that's about 60% for Joe Biden. So that's just in a matter of hours.
It is moved like an insane amount. Did you watched by yourself or with your roommates?
I was with some friends. Yeah, I watched, and then eventually I had to go upstairs and go to bed.
So you did go to bed last night.
About 3 hours ago, I probably fell asleep.
I was just so fascinated by the numbers, and then when I woke up, I was like, hey, I want to check my phone, and that's always dangerous when you got your phone beside the bed anyway. And then that's when I saw the Biden had, in the middle of the night at like 4 a.m., suddenly he took the lead in Wisconsin while pretty much everybody was sleeping, to the extent that anybody was sleeping at all. And so that was a big swing, because prior to that, Trump had been in decent shape, I would say. Who knows? I mean, I'm not an expert in counting votes, but it seemed like he was in decent shape in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And now Biden has moved ahead in Wisconsin. What about you, Eddie? Did you watch the election results last night?
I watched the election results like I would watch an NBA game that I would be interested in. I tuned in for late in the fourth quarter.
So you didn't do anything, or like you didn't put them on until like what? What time did you put on?
Well,
the results?
I knew I was going to be here all night, so I got in here at about 10:30 Pacific time, and I've got 3 TVs here in my update studio. So I've been getting educated on everything that's been going on since I've been working here overnights. And I will agree with Danny G. I don't know who this guy is on CNN, but I've been watching him break down and blow up the different counties like around Las Vegas and Phoenix and Atlanta, and kind of talk about, the different ways the voting's going. Yeah, it's very cool, very informative.
So are the same guys and girls still on, or did they have a shift change? Because I haven't had television on for several hours. Is Wolf Blitzer still going on CNN?
No, it's Cuomo.
Okay, so they handed the baton off at some point to see what might happen there, I guess, because that's a long time to be live on the air, and we'll see what the resolution ends up being. What about you, Roberto? Did you stay up and watch everything?
Yeah, I watched it since like 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yesterday, few things. When Biden got the lead in Florida and Ohio. A lot of that was because a lot of the first tallies were all absentee and mail-in ballots. I think that's why Biden had those leads there. And then they started counting all the votes from the polls, with people that were actually going to the polls, and that's when you saw the dramatic shift, right, from Biden to Trump. And then you saw the same thing in Vermont, Virginia. Virginia was crazy too. All of a sudden, Trump had this massive lead, and then all of a sudden, an hour, 2 hours later, look, and Biden wins Virginia. It's crazy, man. Just the back and forth, and I think some of that's happening right now. Happened with Wisconsin, right? I think they got a lot of those. They started counting a lot of those absentee mail-in ballots.
Yeah, the question is going to loom large. Where are the votes? Twofold. Where are the votes? Because cities typically favor Democrats and rural areas typically favor Republicans right now, more so than probably ever. And 2, were they cast in person or not? Because in-person votes tend to favor the Republicans this year in particular, whereas absentee votes tend to favor the Democrats. So we are going to open up phone lines, which may be a questionable decision. We'll see how exactly that shakes out. Right now in Wisconsin, Joe Biden is up by 7,000 votes with 90% of the votes reported in. And again, he got a major bump in the middle of the night. Right now in Michigan, with 81% of the vote in, Trump is up 4 points. In Pennsylvania, with 75% of the vote in, Trump is up 11. In Georgia, Trump is up 2 with 92% of the vote in. And in North Carolina, Trump is up 1.4% with 95% of the vote in. So, by the way, Biden also up 5 points with 82% of the vote in Arizona. So, who knows what else might end up happening before all is said and done, but that is where we are. I will continue to update you as we move throughout the course of this program. To give you an idea, right now, Donald Trump has about a 200,000 vote lead in the state of Michigan. I believe he won the state of Michigan by 10,000 votes back in 2016. So this thing is probably going to tighten in Michigan. Maybe Biden's going to go ahead. I'm not sure what in the world's going to happen. I'm not going to try to make any predictions at this point.